One Sports Radio, 97.5 and 1240 KFH.
Welcome in, everybody. Sports Daily here on KFH. Jacob Albracht, Tommy Castor alongside you on a Wednesday. Happy Hump Day, everybody. Glad to be here with you. Chad Chambers producing for us, manning that IHOP hotline as always. And it is a hoppin' hotline for you. We've got lots of giveaways today. We've got another and final pair of tickets to give away for the Bert Kreischer comedy show coming to Intrust Bank Arena on Friday at 7 o'clock. We'll also give away some tickets to Paw Patrol. We'll give away some tickets to the Wichita Thunder home opener, some free iced teas to HTO. We've got it all coming for you. That IHOP hotline brought to you by IHOP, where guests can enjoy 4 new sweet and savory biscuit options. Glad to be here with you, Tommy. Good morning. How are you?
I'm good. Happy Wednesday. It's middle of the week. Kind of feeling that middle of the week drain. Got to get through today, though. Downhill slide to the weekend.
Yeah, we're just about there. We're getting there. It takes a minute to get through these midweek days. Wednesdays this time of year are about the quietest day of the week in the sports world. You got Thursday night football getting going tomorrow, and then high school football, and then Saturday you've got college. Sunday you've got NFL. Monday you've got NFL. Tuesday you don't have anything, but man, if you're a fantasy football player, Tuesday's a busy day in the sports world because you got to get it. And then Wednesday it's just like, all right, let's all take a deep breath. Let's catch our breath
before the storm, right?
Yeah, and it's sort of the day, and we do this too on the show. Like, it's sort of the day that you begin to look to the next week, right? You've reacted to the weekend on Monday. You're still having a little fallout, on Tuesday, but by Wednesday, we're looking ahead. We're on to the next one, and that's what we'll do today on the program with K-State, KU, the Chiefs a little bit. We're going to have Ariel Orsuto, good friend and former co-worker here in Wichita, now in Denver. Her timing there has been incredible with the Avalanche Stanley Cup and a Denver Nuggets championship and all of this stuff. And now Coach Prime in Colorado. And she's been following them extensively for a long time. She and I have been talking about them really all summer, Tommy, and she was on them. Like, she said, these guys are for real. Like, these players, this is before they ever took a snap, these players he's bringing in are good, including his son. So we'll talk to Ariel about what that ride's been like, what we expect now that their schedule gets more difficult. That's actually coming up at about 9:30. So we'll get to that, and we'll make sure we've got plenty of time with Ariel there. Tommy, I think the big thing as far as like topical news that came yesterday was the confirmation that K-State loses Daniel Green for the season. That is very tough news. That Coach Kleiman, a bunch of the players yesterday, relatively emotional. I think they've known for a while, but the word that kept getting used was lifeblood of the defense. That's a big loss. I mean, he was playing well in that game, and so now that's one bit of fallout from the Missouri loss. But we don't know if Will Howard's going to play this weekend. Trayshawn Ward will probably not play. Jake Clifton is out. They do get some good news on, tackle Christian Duffy, who should be back. But, Daniel Green is the most shocking, and now the most pressing is the, potential to have to open up the Big 12 without Will Howard or Trayshawn Ward.
Yeah, you saw that Daniel Green injury, I think, in the second quarter of the Missouri game on a hit to Brady Cook, the Missouri quarterback. And then Green left the game temporarily, but then came back and finished the game. He was extremely productive, though. I mean, even battling through that injury to his pectoral, finished with the sack, had a handful of tackles, played really, really well. The first indication that, he was seriously injured was when he wasn't on the depth chart for this weekend's game. The thing that really is the biggest bummer about losing Daniel Green is the fact that he returned to K-State for his 6th season this year. And so Not only is he lost for the year, but I mean, his career at K-State, is effectively over at this point. And that's a big time bummer. That's a definite shame and loss for that defense and just for what he brings to the overall program itself. And, like you mentioned, you could see the emotion on the face of Chris Kleiman. You could, feel the emotion from the players talking about the loss of Daniel Green. And then you mentioned some of the other injury concerns. Will Howard banged up and hobbled in the game against Missouri. What's his status going to be going into this weekend's conference opener? Will we see more of Avery Johnson? I think as we go through the week, we're going to find out more about that. And then Trayshawn Ward, listed as doubtful. That's a big blow too, because that he's shared the carries so far this season with DJ Giddens. Will it be more of Giddens' show this weekend? I guess we'll find out.
Well, I mean, I think it would. Trayshawn Ward, I think the word Kleiman used was doubtful. So
right.
I don't think he's going to play. Will Howard becomes the question, right? Because Will Howard played through it. And so can he do that again? And then, of course, for us, the question becomes, is it Avery Johnson season? It sounds like it probably is if Howard can't go.
Yeah.
Like I think if Howard can't go, it seems like Johnson's just going to get the start. So that's obviously for 1,000 different reasons, this thing we'll watch. I think that he'll probably go. He didn't practice Monday. He was limited yesterday. And then we'll just keep it, up to speed. The good news is we'll have Tim Fitzgerald in tomorrow. We can get an update. And then we'll have, Wyatt Thompson in Friday to get an update. We're going to have a pretty good idea, I think, on how this will go.
Yeah, the one thing that I think about when we're dealing with an injury to Will Howard and watching him get banged up in the Mizzou game, and now these conversations about what his status is going to be this weekend. You and I talked about it at length about the history of that K-State program and dealing with injured quarterbacks. Like, it happens basically every single season, and you go through the gauntlet of tough opponents, and especially heading into conference play. I mean, that's to be expected a little bit, that you're probably going to have a banged up quarterback. But this is the reason why Avery Johnson is on that roster right now, and they didn't redshirt him at the outset of the season, right? Like, if they felt like, okay, well, we can really set Avery Johnson, we can groom him, we can grow him, we can redshirt him, that's one thing. But I mean, you and I have discussed multiple times about the potential of a Will Howard injury. I mean, it's the same thing that when Adrian Martinez was the starter last year and Will Howard had to come in. Skylar Thompson has been injured, was injured during his time at K-State. So, like, this sort of thing happens with this program a lot.
You're just used to it. You can almost count on it.
That's why it's been important to not have Avery Johnson redshirt.
Yeah, and I think we, all summer we wondered about that, and then we sort of collectively, the first time we saw him play, just realized, like, what's the point, right? Like, K-State is in win now mode for the next little while. And if that's the case and he's as good as everybody thinks he's going to be, he's not a, a 5-year player anyway. So it doesn't really matter. And, the other realization that we just need to come to with K-State and probably just about any team, your quarterback's going to get hurt. It's a long season.
Yeah.
Right. K-State, when was the last season that K-State didn't have a quarterback injury to deal with?
It's been a long time.
Jake Waters, did he ever make it through? I mean, I don't honestly, like, I don't know. Like, it's every single year their backup is thrust into action. And so good thing they've got Avery Johnson, right? Like, I mean, he's there and he's good. It'll be different. And, I'm not like, there's no disrespect to Will Howard intended. Will Howard makes this team the best it can be this year. But at least you've got Avery Johnson, who's this dynamic talent. And then it becomes how quickly has he acclimated, himself during practice and all that stuff. But, snaps this week. I think here's the interesting thing to watch this week, Tommy, is practice time. Because if Avery Johnson's going to start, he's going to need the reps in practice with the ones. But if Will Howard is questionable, he also needs to be trying to practice with the ones. So I don't know how that will go. Like, how do you game plan and do all these things when you've got such a young quarterback? Quarterback decisions are a little bit different. And it matters at every position, but not like quarterback. Like, you need those reps with the ones. And so we'll just continue to watch that. It's the story of the week for K-State, but the Daniel Green news is tough news. Certainly don't like to see that, but that's that's where we're at. Again, Treshaun Ward is doubtful. Will Howard questionable. Christian Duffy looks like he'll be able to go. So it's a week of significant injury updates for K-State, who gets, a big time test in the Big 12 opener with UCF, who's looked fantastic.
Yeah, and I think that the question now is posed, and I know we've talked about Will Howard and from the quarterback position, but how significant obviously this loss for Daniel Green is significant for the defense, right? But what does that do to the Wildcats' chances to win a Big 12 championship, to repeat as Big 12 champions? I mean, you've got somebody who is conceivably the anchor of that defense, the veteran. He's got tons of experience, freak athleticism. He's one of the better defenders, one of the best defenders on that team, and has been for, a while now, for a number of years. You lose him as sort of, one of the captains of the defense, if not the captain of the defense. What does that do to the Wildcats' Big 12 title hopes?
It does a lot. I mean, it does a lot. Daniel Green is, and it did see that if he chose to, there is a possibility he could still apply for a medical hardship waiver and get a 7th year. But man, he's all over the place. He's been a conference, all conference honoree a couple of years ago. He's an academic, all conference kind of. He's just a really important piece to everything there. And we'll get more perspective on this, on why, losing him means so much, mentally and emotionally, as much as anything from Fitz and Wyatt Thompson. But it's tough. It's a tough loss. Let's take a quick break. Let's do a giveaway. We'll come back. We'll begin to preview KU, and then we'll get to Ariel Arsudo, bottom of the hour, and let her help us take it to the end with Coach Prime Talk. But let's start, Tommy, with let's start with some hockey. Wichita Thunder home opener coming up real quick, Tommy. It's coming October 20th, 7:00 in Trust Bank Arena.
Today.
What is it? A month?
1 month from today.
Gosh, dang, that's right. 7:00 in Trust Bank Arena. We'll pair that up with some HTO free iced tea, so you can get a pair of hockey tickets, a pair of free iced tea cards from HTO in Wichita, West or East. Also now, just coming up on a week old in Derby. So lots of options there for those free iced tea cards. Your Wichita Thunder tickets included. A nice little prize pack to our first caller during the break here, 869-1240 on the IHOP hotline. We'll come back. We'll begin to talk KU as they look ahead to their Big 12 opener next.
The commercials are over.
Yo, I haven't got all day.
869-1240.
Time to get busy.
This is Sports Daily on KFH.
All right, welcome back in, everybody. Sports Daily here on KFH. Jacob Albracht, Tommy Castor. Congratulations to Bart for winning a little HTO that he can utilize in Wichita, East or West, or Derby, and for winning some hockey tickets to the Wichita Thunder home opener. Tommy, a month away. My goodness, you guys all fired up?
Yeah, we're ready to rock and roll 1 month from today. So getting down to that crunch time, getting everything ready to rock and roll. And, we've been making player announcements for the last month or so, some returners, some new players. It's going to be a great season. So we're looking forward to having everybody out there 1 month from today at Intrust Bank Arena.
What is what are things looking like on the ice? What have you heard from that side of the building? Are they pretty fired up for the squad this year?
Yeah, things are good. And, the announcement was made earlier this summer that the Thunder re-upped the affiliation with the San Jose Sharks. So entering year number 2 of that affiliation with the NHL squad. So that's good. As far as I know, no announcements have been made yet as far as which players from the Sharks the Thunder will have on their roster for this season, but there will be, I'm sure, a handful of them. But some big returners, Jay Dickman, who's a fan favorite, he will be back this season as one of the key guys for the Thunder, and some newcomers as well. So looking forward to that.
I mean, it's a new year. It's crazy.
Yeah.
I've always, the all season is so long. It's like that, which is cool. Gives people a lot of opportunities and a lot of different times of the year to get fired up for it. But we'll look forward to that. Bart, you'll head there on us. Congratulations for the win there. Tommy, KU getting ready for BYU. Line's moving slightly toward BYU a little bit. It's now to 8.5. I got to tell you, I don't like either line for our teams of interest. KU favored by 8.5, K-State favored by 4.5. I'm not real comfortable with either of those. I think UCF and BYU are two teams that feel like, they got a shot to compete in this league. They're two newcomers, but they've had nice starts to their season.
Yeah, and in the case of KU, I feel like Vegas is giving the Jayhawks a lot of grace after the game against Nevada last weekend. That line was massive. It was 4 touchdowns against Nevada, and KU won by 7 points. And so clearly Vegas feels like that was maybe a fluke, or not, not the norm for the Jayhawks. Meanwhile, BYU goes into Arkansas and knocks off an SEC team. And here we go with the Jayhawks with, 8.5 point favorites against BYU. And so that's surprising to me a little bit. I'm kind of with you on that. I don't love that line. I understand the Wildcats line a little bit more just because of the fact that they had been ranked up until the loss at Missouri. And clearly Vegas thinks that the Wildcats are going to bounce back at home against UCF. So I understand that one a little bit more than I understand the KU line. I don't love either one of them. I'm kind of with you. I think as the week goes on, I might settle down, and be okay with them. But as of right now, I'm not.
Well, they've just been, for the last 2 years, it's felt like you've had value in them both pretty consistently. K-State, we were wrong about last week. Clearly, that was one of my favorite lines of the year. Couldn't figure it out. Vegas is good at what they do. But I don't love either one of them. I'm not just super comfortable. I don't know what it is.
I mean, they're both at home.
Well,
they're both at home, right? I mean, so that's got to play into it a little bit.
I know why I'm uncomfortable with it. For K-State, all the injuries, we don't know what's happening at quarterback. That one to me is a little bit. If they're moderately healthy, within a touch, I mean, it's probably better. Yeah, but KU's interesting. And look, I think KU has looked really nice and probably better than we thought because the defense has played better than we thought, right? But BYU just went and beat Arkansas in Arkansas, right? And I was like, by more than a touchdown here just seems rich, and it may move down enough. Like if it gets down to 7 or lower, I'd be a little more comfortable with it. But they're going to have their hands full. And, it wasn't the margin of victory we expected for Nevada. So, I don't know, but I do feel good about him in the game. We talked to Shreyas Laddha at the beginning of the week, and he pointed out, the difficulties KU's had has been with running quarterbacks, and Slovis, that's not really his game for BYU. They have wins, again, at Arkansas. That's the big one. They beat Sam Houston State in a weird one, 14-0. Not sure what that was all about. And then I don't even know Southern Utah. So but it's the Arkansas game, Tommy. Now, the other thing to consider is they just went on the road to Arkansas, and they got to follow that up with another road trip here to Lawrence. So, that part of it could factor in. Back-to-back on the road is a little tricky. Slovis doesn't run the ball. In fact, he doesn't have a rushing attempt all year, Tommy.
Really?
So he's not a running quarterback. That's not what he does. But he's a pretty good passer. And, he's been around for a while, and we'll see. That's KU's, get a little pressure. And for the reality is for KU, don't you feel like still like track meet people? Like, I know the defense has looked better, but it's really like, is KU still equipped to track meet people? And I think that they are. What are the over-unders on these games? I haven't really checked that. The over-under on that one, 54.5.
Okay.
54.5. I might like that a little better. They've been they were 57 against Illinois, 55 right at that number against Nevada. So that's an interesting one. I don't know. I feel good about KU to win the game, but to win by 2 scores, that's not really the way KU's operated in big time games. They like to win close games.
Well, and that's the way that they've, kind of been built. And, outside of the Illinois game, Illinois, I feel like that victory was probably the most impressive one out of the 3 so far. The opening matchup against Missouri State, they didn't play well in the first half. They pulled away in the second half. Of course, we know about the struggles against Nevada for a variety of reasons. Illinois was the game where they looked the most complete from start to finish. They've got to back that up in this conference opener against BYU. The one thing that BYU has, and Lance Leipold has talked about it, it's actually, I think, become a little bit of bulletin board material. I think a little bit for BYU is the experience that BYU has. And, Lance Leipold mentioned it as age. He said that, their average age is around 22. The players on that team, they're an older team, that they're a veteran team. For whatever reason, I'm not sure that BYU really appreciated that, or at least their beat writers didn't, because I've seen that on social media the last couple of days. But regardless, what they do have is experience. And so that's really, a lot of the reason why I think BYU was able to go into an environment like in Arkansas at Razorback Stadium and get a win on the road against an SEC opponent. They'll be looking to do the same thing this weekend in Lawrence. And so that's got to be the big thing, I think, that the Jayhawks will have to combat.
Yeah, I think you're right. How has Jalen Daniels looked to you, Tommy? I mean, are we concerned anymore about his health?
No, I think he's good. I think he's fine. I think that it's something that, he's clearly able to play through and work through. I don't know if we'll even hear about any kind of, back flare-ups through the remainder of the season. I think it's just something he'll work through. And I think he's looked fine.
He was really good throwing the ball against Nevada. The one oddity, of course, is he didn't really run the ball. His total yardage rushing, and a lot of things factor into that, was -4 yards. That's a part of his game that KU in a part of that offense KU needs. Look, they scored 31 points against Nevada. They probably needed to score more than that. And I think a big part of their offense is him running the ball. And so that was the one thing that was a little strange. He looked great throwing the ball, though. We'll see. I haven't seen anything where I'm like, oh, the injury. I don't know if maybe the running will be a little bit more limited just out of, safety's sake, which, if that's the case, I don't usually like that. Like, I don't, I think of, I just don't want him to take that part of his game away. And he's a more dynamic runner than, like, let's take Dak Prescott, for example. But it's really altered Dak Prescott's game to limit that.
I don't think that'll change, because he's so versatile, and that's what he's built his career on and the success that he's had. So I don't see a scenario where that happens. Sure, he might be hampered, by injuries or banged up and have, the sore back or whatever. But I really don't think that we're going to see him shift away, or even like, Andy Kotelnicki and Lance Leipold moving away from what works for Jalen Daniels and why they're in the position that they're in.
I don't either. but it's something to watch because it, you know, in a game where you feel like he would have run all over Nevada, he didn't. Don't know why. Let me go back and actually look at the line on the Illinois game. He ran it against Illinois 18 times. Yeah, okay, so that, but only for 20 yards. So that was clearly more. So it's probably okay, but I am watching it. Like I do want to see, because that would be the thing that would indicate that there is some concern with the injury, right? Like there's some, even if he's not showing it, like if he goes from 18 rushes to 7, like if he doesn't, if he's not up there, you know, what is it, 10 plus, 12 plus carries, it makes me wonder if, like, yeah, I don't think they want him to get hit. I don't know if he's completely comfortable yet physically. So we'll see. I think it's something to watch. And it's one of the reasons that I'm just uncomfortable trying to predict KU right now, because if Jalen Daniels is 100%, it's very different than if Jalen Daniels is 85%, because that might come with him being able to be a dynamic runner, because you're trying to minimize his, you know, his contact, his injury risk. So we'll see. I think KU is going to be fine. Don't like the number where it is right now. I love both of these games as Big 12 openers, though. Don't you? Because, like, you're looking at the Big 12 schedule as a whole. If we just look at the Big 12, which has been, you know, like we've talked about, wildly underwhelming this year, what teams have played to a level where you think, okay, they could probably be competitive to win the title? Oklahoma certainly has. I think Kansas has. I think BYU has. I think Texas Tech has.
They're on the list.
Yeah, Texas, obviously. Baylor, I don't think we would say that right now. Oklahoma State and Iowa State, I don't think we would say that right now. And Houston, we wouldn't say that right now. So, you know, you're looking at 2 of the probably 5 or 6 teams that have played well enough out of the Big 12 that you're, you know, interested in whether they can, you know, get to the top. Man, that's the part that makes me love these games. And these are the best 2, I think, clearly, of the Cincinnati. I don't know what to think of Cincinnati. I have no take on Cincinnati yet. Got to see them play a little bit.
Yeah, the nice thing about BYU and UCF, and we talked a little bit about UCF yesterday, but the one thing that both of these teams have is, because they're brand new in the conference, nobody's thinking about them as legitimate contenders to win the conference right away. So they can kind of be sneaky. They can be dark horse candidates to win the league. But I think both teams can be. And so you've got BYU taking on Kansas. You've got UCF taking on Kansas State. It's going to be a really nice opening week conference test for both of our in-state teams.
Biggest, you know, like, prove-it games for both teams so far, for sure. K-State's got the big injury issues. But, yeah, we'll see. Coach Lance Leipold, talking about BYU. They got an old roster, which is troubling. I mean, that does help you go win on the road. But, yeah, there's a bunch of old guys on that team. All right, we'll take a quick break. When we come back, Ariel Orsuto joins us. We'll talk a little Colorado football. Coach Prime from the boots on the ground. We'll do that next on Sports Daily. All right, welcome back in, everybody. Sports Daily here on KFH. Jacob Albracht, Tommy Castor, tracking down Ariel Orsuto to talk a little Colorado football. Just to sort of get the ball rolling on that, Tommy. What do you make of this player for Colorado State that knocked out Hunter? And I mean, it was one. Let's separate two things, like the blasting his info out on social media and death threats. Obviously, that's stupid and nothing like that should ever happen. Like, let's be real here. Don't be ridiculous. Right. I will say, though, I mean, that was one of the dirtier hits I've seen. I'm not buying the talk from Norvell. Did you say we have Ariel, Jeff? Ariel, what's up? Ariel Orsuto from 9 News in Denver joining us here on Sports Daily. Glad to have you. Busiest person perhaps in Colorado. You catching your breath from all of this championship and big hype coverage you've got going on here?
Yeah, I mean, Coach Prime is certainly keeping me busy, keeping me on my toes at least.
I think he's keeping literally everybody in the world of media busy because he's everywhere right now. It's intentional. It's on purpose. It's obviously working for him. I mean, you and I have been talking about this before they ever played a game, and whether it's, on the air, wherever, just, privately, this was always to me going to work because of his personality. But I'm fascinated, Ariel, by how good a job he's done off the field building this hype train. It just all seems so intentional to me, and it's been almost perfect for clearly what his plan has been for all of this.
Yeah, Jacob, it's absolutely intentional. And I think off the field, just the way it is in the media markets, the way we're seeing it on national TV, I think that was always the plan, and that was always going to take off. I think that what we were going to see on the field is what people weren't sure about. And that's why after the first game, you heard the "do you believe?" and, you don't believe, all of that, because people weren't sure what the product was actually going to be like on the field. We all knew that we were going to get this successful, just hype off of the field because it's primetime Deion Sanders, right? I mean, like, no matter what, we were going to get an entertaining product. But what was this actual team going to look like? But I mean, it's a bunch of 4-star, 5-star players. It better have been good.
Yeah, I wonder, Ariel, when we're talking about, through the first 3 games and, exactly the way that they've played, they obviously beat TCU in that big upset. And then, Colorado or Nebraska at home and then Colorado State last week. Is there a sense at all? Of course, we know how difficult their schedule is going to become once they get into conference play with Oregon and then USC and all of that. Is there ever a sense that, the other shoe is about to drop at some point? Like, based off seeing the way that they performed against Colorado State on Saturday, what's the sense moving forward into really difficult conference play?
Well, I think the sense is that they're obviously going to be playing against a very different caliber team in number 10 Oregon, a team that that has been beating teams by 80 points or putting up 80 points, 50 points, like consistently in every one of their games so far. But I don't think that they fear that. They don't fear Bo Nix. They don't fear this team that they're about to play. We just spoke to Shiloh Sanders yesterday, and he's really excited for not only Oregon, but just the Pac-12 play coming up, just because they throw the ball a lot. They go downfield a lot. And he says, well, all that does is just give me more opportunities to pick the ball off. So I think that they're really excited for the level of play that they're about to see. He even said, like, this isn't necessarily the biggest test. The biggest test just happened this past Saturday. We weren't expecting CSU to be the biggest test, but it was. So they see the adversity that they just faced as the biggest test they've seen so far, and they can only learn from that. I don't know if I'm going to say that the shoe is going to drop necessarily in Oregon, because we see right now that it's a 21-point spread, right, for this Oregon game. But what does Vegas really know about this team? Because in week 1, they were 17.5-point underdogs to TCU. They not only covered, they won outright. Then in the CSU game, they were 23.5-point favorites. They took them to overtime. And in this game, they're 21-point dogs to Oregon. I do not think it's going to be that big of a spread. I think they could obviously lose to Oregon, but I don't think they're going to lose like 21 points.
Well, and it's got like backdoor cover all over it. Like, are they not, even if it does
Absolutely.
get out of hand, like they could get it in there. 71 points is the over under. I've never bet the over on a number that big. I'm taking the over. It feels like a wild and crazy game. We know Travis Hunter will not be there, correct? He'll be out a few weeks.
He's out for 3 weeks. It could be 4 weeks, but at this point, it's looking like 3 weeks with a lacerated liver.
So I look at Oregon and Texas Tech, and Texas Tech's going to be good this year, I think. But that was a tight game. So then it's like, okay, well, is Colorado as good as Tech? No, probably not. And then without Travis Hunter, I think I get the spread. I'm with you. I would never, against a team with the kind of firepower that Colorado has, that's just, it's not comfortable. Let's talk about Shedeur Sanders. Are we talking, you think NFL? Like, what's been the buzz on him? And he looks good. Like, he looks awesome. He looks like a pro. Is he starting to get that sort of run and hype? And is that the predictable future for him? I think we may have lost Ariel there. Jad, do we still have Ariel? I think Ariel, we lost a connection there. We'll see. We can try and connect that one more time. I'll ask you that question, Tommy, because I think it's on everybody's mind. Shedeur Sanders, do you think he's a pro prospect?
I think he is. And I think that there's, an opportunity for a number of teams in the NFL to benefit from what Shedeur Sanders can do. I didn't really think that coming into this season, but man, through the first couple of weeks of the year, I think that he's somebody that absolutely can be an asset for an NFL team. Will he be?
He's completed almost 80% of his passes this year.
Will he
78%?
A long-term star in the NFL? I don't know if I'm willing to go that far yet, but I do think that he can absolutely benefit a team in the NFL.
I tell you this, I haven't seen anything from him that would tell me anybody outside Ariel. I don't know if you heard the question that we're talking about Shedeur Sanders. What is 78% he's completed his passes? Is this a bona fide pro prospect? This isn't, this doesn't seem like a flash in the pan. He's showing stuff for me, and I'm no scout, that I'm like, yeah, that looks like an NFL player out there.
Yeah. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. Yeah, I don't know if you heard me at all, but his projection is to be, first of all, he's getting Heisman buzz around here. And then his projection is to be a first-round pick in the NFL. But just this past weekend, they put out on one of their, they have so much social media stuff going out. One of their videos was them in a box at the Denver Broncos game. And Shiloh said oh, bro, this could be us next year. And Coach Prime said, not if I have anything to do with it, basically saying neither of you are going anywhere next year. So he's not letting either of his sons go anywhere next year. But the talk is that he's probably getting first round buzz. And I see it. I mean, he is, first of all, completing the most passes under pressure in the entire FBS. He has been pressured the most out of every quarterback in the entire FBS, and he's completing those passes. I mean, that is incredibly impressive. I think you can really see it just by that 98-yard drive that he led at the end of the Colorado State game. and then the way he led them in overtime. Coach Prime said there was not a doubt in his mind that he was getting the ball first in overtime because he wanted the ball in Shedor's hands. Usually you always go defense first because you want to see what the other team is providing for you. He said he wants the ball in Shedor's hands because if they're going to win with Shedor.
Ariel, what's your takeaway so far through the first 3 weeks on Dylan Edwards, the Derby native? Of course, he had a great week 1 against TCU in his very first game in a Buffalo's jersey. And clearly Coach Prime thinks the world of this kid. And it's a really big spotlight for him as a freshman coming into this program that, the entire college football world is looking at right now.
Yeah, absolutely. He had a phenomenal first game against TCU. He had 4 touchdowns, I think, in that game.
Yeah.
And he was, freshman of the week. He was all of those things. He had an incredible game. Coach Prime has been coaching him since he was 7 years old. So he's always wanted this kid on his team eventually. And he is showing at the FBS level exactly what you have all seen at Derby for all of those years. He is incredible. He is an athlete. He's basically a wide receiver in a running back's body. And that is perfect for this team because they do not run. They have like 60 something yards through all of these games. So I think what's going to be successful for Dylan is if he can actually just get the ball out in the flats and something like that, like in the slot, because they are not running the ball. They're not having any success running the ball, and they don't care. They're not even trying.
Yeah, and we get why he went there now, I think, because probably, I would imagine Coach Prime told him this opportunity exactly was there for him. Ariel, Michigan State's open, and big jobs are going to come open, and Prime is absolutely going to be everybody's top candidate. You can get all the coaching lists you want. He's going to be the top candidate and the biggest prize or wish for everybody. Explain to us, because this has been an interesting, journey for him to Colorado. They famously couldn't pay him, figured it out, all this stuff, the buzz, their ratings are high. What matters to him, do you think, in the conversations you've had with him? Like, do you see him as a short timer in Boulder or a long timer in Boulder, if not before like the NFL or something? But what's the vibe you get on his, future prospects?
So he said multiple times that the NFL doesn't even interest him. He doesn't even watch the NFL much anymore because that's just not anything that interests him at all. So I would kind of write that off. As far as other programs, I just don't know what would be flashy enough to bring him anywhere else because the money comes wherever he is. So for instance, like we said, like they didn't have the money to pay him when he first got here. Rick George did not have that money. He said, we will find the money. They found the money within weeks. Basically, they sold out that spring game. They sold out apparel. They did all of these things, and they just found that money out of thin air just because of the name Deion Sanders. And what makes it, basically what I'm trying to say is if anybody else was trying to pay him a higher contract, why could Colorado not match that just by the sheer fact that he's here and they could just find the money elsewhere, right? Like, I don't see what could bring him anywhere else at this point.
I guess that's why I ask. I mean, he's a Hall of Fame football player that's been wildly successful in the media, and he is endorsed and all of these things. Does it even matter to him? I guess because he's got his kids there. He's building this thing. They're about to make the switch to a new car. Like all these things. Like I just wonder what motivates him. I mean, look, there's a competitive nature to coaching salaries. I get that. But I don't know that he would have ever taken this job in the first place if that was his biggest concern.
Right. And he also loves living here. I mean, if anybody has ever stepped foot in Boulder, Colorado, I think you could figure it out, like why you would love living there. It is one of the most gorgeous places like you could ever imagine living. And so I think he said, he's like, I've never vacationed there. I've never skied. I've never done any of these things. But as soon as I stepped foot on that field and looked at the Flatirons, like there was no doubt in my mind I was taking this job. Like why else would, there's just no there's no reason not to. Then he also has his youngest daughter playing on the basketball team, and she's only a redshirt freshman. So yeah, the older boys are going to be gone within the next year or two, but she's there for 4 more years. So it's, obviously she could go somewhere else too. She was at Jackson last year, but why leave, right? Why?
Yeah. Yeah. I think I'm with you on that. All right. Let's shift gears for this last one, Ariel. You've got some luck attached to you here with the Chiefs' rise while you were here, and you go to Colorado, and you've got an Avs championship in the books. You've got is it Denver? The University of Denver's women's basketball team has kind of risen here with you there. You've got a Nuggets championship. Now you've got Prime. Power rank it for me. What's been your favorite thing? The Broncos not being as good and then mess with Russell Wilson. Like, what's been the best story since you've been there to cover with all these, juicy ones that have appeal really all across the country?
Oh, that's really hard to power rank it. So, I mean, first, the cover. So I was on the Avs beat first and foremost. So getting to cover my first Stanley Cup championship was probably number one, because that was incredible. I was along for the ride. I jumped on the Nuggets train very late, so I kind of just got the benefit of just being there for the Western Conference Final and the championship and the parade and everything. So I didn't really put a whole lot into that one. I kind of just reaped the benefits. So that's a little lower, but was also super fun. The University of Colorado women's basketball team is, I believe, what you were thinking, and they're incredible. They're also just the most fun team to work with. And so I've been to a couple Sweet 16s with them and stuff. They're just awesome. I love working with them. But there is probably nothing I've ever experienced like this Colorado Buffaloes football team. It's kind of like an out of body experience. Because
I totally get what you're saying. I do.
Because it's not sports, it's entertainment. I've never been on a field where Lil Wayne comes out and right in front of me and does a concert while the team comes out. I've never been there where The Rock is on the field, and it's an out of body experience, Jacob.
It's going to work too. It's going to keep coming. The Big 12 gets the benefit of it. Timing is everything, but this is. Everybody wants to be a part of it. I get it. I have not talked to not one person that isn't on board and rooting for Colorado. The ratings, the proof is in the pudding. Grandmas love Deion Sanders. They've always loved Deion Sanders. Since he was a player, it's just this perfect storm, and we can all just enjoy it. And, I'm sorry to any of their opponents, and that'll change next year as they get into the Big 12 around here. But for this year, we're all Buffalo fans, and I don't remember anything like that ever happening either. It's cool. It's cool, and I'm glad you're right there in the middle of it. And we'll be checking back in. Could you imagine if they win one of the 2 next games, just one of them? What?
Absolutely crazy.
It's going to be insane.
And just like you're saying, my mom's a grandmom, and my mom all of a sudden is a huge Buff fan, and stayed up until 2 a.m. to watch the end of that game, texted me and said, I'm still watching at overtime for no reason. She is in New Jersey. There is no reason other than just the fact that she loves primetime Deion Sanders.
It's always been that way. My great aunt Dora Jean was a huge Cowboys fan. And when he returned punts, there was nothing louder than her cheers and screams for Deion Sanders returning punts. But just a handful of years he was with the Cowboys, he's always had that effect on people. It's really cool to see, and we're really glad that you're there, right in the middle of it, Ariel. It's been awesome to follow along with you here and hear you in the press conferences and all that stuff. You can follow Ariel at Ariel Orsuto on social media. You can find her work at 9 News. Ariel, appreciate it. We'll do it again soon.
Thanks, guys.
There goes Ariel Orsuto, formerly of 12 News, co-worker. Strap a rocket to her back for her career. So happy for Ariel. Could see it coming a mile away. Nobody works harder, and I'm glad she's on these beats because she certainly deserves it. Go follow her work. Her interactions with Prime have been epic. All right, 869-1240 is the IHOP hotline. We're going to take a quick break. On the way out here from hour number 1, let's give something away, Jad. Let's do a little Paw Patrol. Got some kiddos, want to take them to the movies? It's one of our family's favorite things to do. Boulevard Theater at Town West is hooking us up. Opening night of that animated feature, Paw Patrol. We've got tickets for opening night, which is Friday, September 29th. That'll be next week, 7 o'clock, Boulevard Theater at Town West. Third caller during the break will win the Parent Award, 869-1240 on that IHOP hotline. We'll be back. Hour number 2 next.
97.5 and 1240 KFH.
All right, welcome back in, everybody. Take ball, Tommy Castor. We are rolling through. Congratulations to Benny for winning those tickets to Paw Patrol. Chad Chambers producing, manning that IHOP hotline for you, which is, of course, brought to you by IHOP, where guests can enjoy 4 new sweet and savory biscuit options. Our appreciation to Ariel Orsuto for talking a little Prime in Colorado. Glad to get her in here to do that, but it's been fun anyway for her to follow that. She and Prime have had a really cool relationship. It's been interesting. Their interactions are good. She doesn't back down from anybody, so she'll just stand her ground. She's always been that way. It's cool. But if you missed any of that on Colorado, you can go back and listen for free on the Odyssey app, Chad will get that produced out for us. Speaking of the Odyssey app, and I know we mentioned this one yesterday, I want to mention it again. It's fantasy football season, Tommy, and it has been a nightmare injury-wise in the NFL. You don't want to finish last in your fantasy football league. We're only 2 weeks in, and you're never out of it. The Upper Hand Fantasy Podcast brings you the latest news and player insights to help you win and avoid any embarrassing league punishments, in-depth analysis, start-sit questions, everything you need for your fantasy team. Download Upper Hand Fantasy on the free Odyssey app or wherever you get your podcasts. Are you weathering the storm on these injuries, Tommy?
Yeah, I'm doing okay. It really hasn't been that bad for my teams. I've got a couple of leagues where I've got Saquon Barkley, and so, looking to see if he's going to be able to play on Thursday. It sounds like, according to Brian Dable, he's feeling better, and it's going to go down to the wire on whether or not he's going to play tomorrow night. I would doubt it, but you never know. So that's really the most major injury that I've dealt with in any one of my leagues.
Yeah, I've dealt with a bunch. It is what it is. That's the thing. Like, there was a time when you got to this point where it's like, oh my gosh, we'll never withstand all these injuries and it's crazy and blah, 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 blah. That's not really the case anymore, right? Like, now that's a part of it. That's sort of like, you don't win in fantasy football unless you are just really good at, maintaining that. Puka Nacua, one of the best players in fantasy football. Kyron Williams. We're 2 weeks in, and we're full of names we haven't ever heard of. So you got to just keep up with it. Speaking of, the Browns are apparently bringing on board, Tommy, Kareem Hunt here. And I don't know what that means. Like, I don't expect the world out of Kareem Hunt here. But it makes a lot of sense for Cleveland. He's looked to me like he's lost a lot of juice, but he's there, and he is an option, and a pretty interesting option for Cleveland, just because he knows it all, right? Like, he's been there before.
Yeah, that's the thing, is that he's played for that organization in the past, so he knows, or at least should know, the way that locker room works and all of that. I don't know how effective he's going to be. I mean, like, I'm not really convinced that he's going to be a guy that can come in and, ultimately change the fortunes of the Browns, with Nick Chubb out. That being said, though, they needed somebody, right? I mean, like, who was the guy? It was like Jerome Ford was the guy that was the presumptive starter after Nick Chubb's injury. And I think that Ford looked okay, in relief of Chubb after he went down with that injury on Monday Night Football. But I don't know, if the Browns feel like they can still compete in that division, if they felt comfortable just riding on Jerome Ford or not, So I get the signing. There should be some comfortability with Kareem Hunt in that system, but I'm not sure that that's really going to do a whole lot to, make the Browns that much better in that division.
I mean, Nick Chubb is one of those running backs, Tommy, that absolutely, well, let me put it this way. He's as impactful, I think, to his team's success as any running back is in the NFL. Does that make sense?
I'd agree with that.
As there is more of a difference versus replacement value for Kareem Hunt as there is for anybody in the NFL. That maybe that's a better way to say it. Like he is that kind of player. So yes, it absolutely impacts Cleveland. It impacted him in that game,
Sure,
Tommy. He was
but
he was averaging
said,
6.5 yards a carry
yeah.
in that game.
That being said, though, I mean, I understand why Kareem Hunt is going back there, right?
Oh,
like,
sure.
There's that. I mean, he played for what, 4 seasons for the Browns, and so he knows that system really well. He knows Kevin Stefanski. He's been there, and the fact that I think Kareem Hunt visited like 4 or 5 teams leading up to the season. I know he visited the Vikings, and I think he visited the Colts, and there were a couple of other teams that he went to. Didn't sign with any of them. I think waiting for an opportunity for a player to go down with an injury, or something like that, it makes sense for him to go back to a team that he spent, a long time with. So I understand that. But knowing the way that Deshaun Watson has played in the first 2 games, you lose Nick Chubb. I know they've got a good defense, but I don't think the Kareem Hunt signing is going to be the difference maker on whether or not the Browns make the playoffs. I just don't see it.
Time's going to have to tell on that. I don't think he has enough left in the tank, but it really becomes a question of like, are they able to run the ball? Are they able to are they able to run it enough to help? My problem with them is I don't think Deshaun Watson looks very good. It's not as dramatic as like the Jets where everybody else on the roster is really good, but he doesn't look like playoffs is one thing, Super Bowl's another, right? That's there. I think there's a difference there.
I get it. I think that there is. They don't have as complete of a team, outside of the running back position. So again, like we went through at the beginning of the year and we picked our divisional winners and all of that. I've not thought highly of the Browns, even with Nick Chubb. Like, I didn't think that the Browns were a playoff caliber team. I didn't think the Browns were a team that could compete to win that division, or to even get a wild card spot to go to the playoffs in the AFC. I just didn't see it in that division. Now I recognize that they beat the Bengals in week number 1. I get all of that. But that was really due large in part to the inefficiencies of Cincinnati. Really, honestly, Watson hasn't looked good in the first 2 games this season at all. He's going to be able to break off some plays here and there, which is good. Again, I've never seen them as a playoff caliber team in the AFC North. And especially now when you're replacing Nick Chubb with Kareem Hunt, I just don't see it.
Well, their defense is good enough. And look, Pittsburgh, it wasn't like Pittsburgh did
They are,
much
but they're
on
not
offense.
complete anywhere else. Like, I don't see that defense being the sole factor for a reason why they can be a playoff team.
Oh, I do. For playoffs, I do. I mean, I'm not saying I know.
Competing
I
in
didn't
that
have
division?
them.
Okay.
I didn't
All
have
right.
them in the playoffs anyway. So don't get me wrong. Like, I didn't, even with Nick Chubb, they weren't a playoff team for me, but they were real close. And so, yes, I think their defense has looked better through 2 weeks than I thought it would. And I was already counting on a pretty good defense. I think they have one of the top units of football for sure. For sure, the AFC. So we'll see how far that can take them. But the problem for them is that Deshaun Watson doesn't look very good. Like that's the issue that they're going to run into. Okay, Tommy. We mentioned the Jets there, and that's kind of where I wanted to go. But Tom Brady sure doesn't ever make it crystal clear that he's done, does he? Like, he just doesn't quite slam the door on it.
I
said
don't know what you're talking about.
podcast.
I've not seen this.
So Jim Gray asked him, and I haven't heard the audio, so I'm just
Okay.
reading this, but I've seen it a couple places. Jim Gray asks, basically, have the Jets called and are you interested? And his answer was, next question you already know. I love being with you guys on Mondays. And they even say it almost, maybe he mumbled no, but it wasn't like emphatic. And he has all these commercials where he jokes around about it. I think he's done. Man, it would be how great of a story would that be if he did? But the problem for me, look, if it was a team where everything was the exact same, but they had a better offensive line, I would say there's a reasonable chance that he might do it. But with that line where Rodgers only played 4 snaps, but was like pressured on all of them, and they're going to be, it just doesn't seem like a good fit to me. As great as Tom Brady is, like, he's 42 years old. He's got to have protection. He's older
He's
than,
older
how old
than
is he?
that.
40,
He's 46.
Yeah,
He's
46 years old. He's 46 years old. Like, you can't go somewhere where you're going to get hit. And if he went to New York, he would get hit a lot. No, that's the problem for me. But he doesn't ever make it, like, never say never. It's just kind of, I don't know.
That's Tom Brady for you. Like, that's who he is. I mean, like, the fact that he has been, he's not played so far this season, but yet he's everywhere. I mean, you see him at Gillette Stadium getting honored in week number 1. Like, he's all over the place, right? He's in commercials. It's kind of like Peyton Manning, and even Eli, to an extent. Those guys are retired and they're still everywhere on TV. That's just kind of the way that it works now. But I agree with you that if the situation was a little bit different with the Jets, if they had an offensive line that could protect him, then it would be, I think, intriguing for him to come out of retirement and try to do that. But you and I talked about it. As soon as Aaron Rodgers went down with that injury, I mean, every single play that Aaron Rodgers made in the first 4 plays of the game, he was under duress in every single one of them. That offensive line is not good. And Tom Brady's 46. And I think that he's smart enough to know that, he's going to be under duress a lot if he plays for the Jets. I just don't think that's appealing. I think everything else, storyline wise, probably is, but I'm just not sure. Like, self-preservation is very important for Tom Brady, and I'm not sure that's the best decision for him.
I agree. If they had a better line, though, I would not rule it out. But I just don't see.
But they don't.
I know. I just don't see any way. So what do they do? Which leads me into that question. The Jets sit here. I mean, Zach Wilson looks so bad. It's almost to the point where you're just like, I mean, anybody would be better. What are they waiting for? And why are they not moving a little more quickly on fine? Like, what are you go find and I get it. Teams aren't really willing to trade backup quarterbacks, and that's the difficulty. You almost have to find somebody off the street. But don't you at least try to overpay for somebody's good backup?
By all accounts, though, the Jets front office and coaching staff, they still believe in Zach Wilson. Now, I don't know if
they believe in Zach
Well,
Wilson.
come on now. Like, we've talked about it before. Had they moved away from Zach Wilson in the offseason and kept Mike White, it'd be different. But they kept Zach Wilson on the roster to serve as the backup with the thought that he could be a reclamation project down the road. Like, that's why they kept him on that roster. If they didn't feel like that if they didn't think he had any value at all, they would have moved away from him as soon as they brought in Aaron Rodgers. But they didn't do that, right? They didn't. So by all accounts, they still have at least a shred of faith in Zach Wilson as a viable quarterback on that roster. And so, again, like, I think that probably from what we've seen so far, that trust and faith is dwindling, and it's more than likely not going to happen for him. But I think they want to do their due diligence a little bit and just make sure that 100% it's not going to work.
It's not going to work.
Well, you and I know that, but they invested a significant amount of draft capital in him.
They know it, though. If they can't have, unless they do not have eyeballs, they have to know it. Like, it looks as bad as a quarterback can look in the NFL. And I get, maybe you think there's something in there that can be untapped at some point. Okay, that's very different than having a really good team and trying to win a Super Bowl this year. And there is some talk and rumor that maybe Rodgers could return for the playoffs because, and I've wondered this too. And I think I said it here. I said it somewhere. It's not the same as when Kevin Durant or Kobe Bryant or J.K. Dobbins blows an Achilles for Aaron Rodgers to, because he doesn't run. He doesn't have to run. He has to be able to move 3 or 4 feet in any direction in a pocket. If that possibility is real, you've got to make sure you get to the playoffs. And they were already going to have a hard time getting to the playoffs with Aaron Rodgers because their schedule is pretty brutal.
Yeah.
You're not going to get there with Zach Wilson, even as great as their roster is in other places. Even if they wake up a little bit and run the ball about 30 times a game with Breece Hall and Dalvin Cook, they're still not going to be able to get there with Zach Wilson. Could they get there with, insert name here, Jacoby Brissett or Andy Dalton or Joe Flacco, who, by the way, looked pretty good last year? Yes, I think that they could still. It's still a long shot, but it's a much better shot than with Zach Wilson.
I don't see a scenario where they trade for somebody. And I know that there were rumors that they were interested in Kirk Cousins and that there might be a trade involving the Vikings and that sort of thing. I don't see a trade happening. The reason for that is that then you've got to take on that contract of whoever that backup quarterback is. And if you are confident that Aaron Rodgers will be back, not only potentially for the playoffs, but also for next season, then you're stuck with another quarterback contract, and it might be a backup or whatever. I think it's more likely that they sign somebody off the street on just a flat 1-year deal. Have them play through this year, be the stopgap to help get them to the playoffs, and then let Rodgers take it back over. And then that whoever they signed is back to being a free agent after this season. I think that's probably more likely as opposed to trading away assets potentially. And then, I don't know exactly who they might be looking at as a current backup quarterback, but whoever that quarterback is more than likely has multiple years on a deal that then the Jets are going to have to deal with. So I think it's probably more likely that they sign somebody off the street on just a flat 1-year deal to help get them to the playoffs and be that kind of bridge to Aaron Rodgers, who could potentially come back for the playoffs.
But just do that then, because they have to, they have to get there. Who's their backup quarterback right now? Like, who is the Jets' backup quarterback? Let's just look.
Tim Boyle. It's Tim Boyle. It goes.
Who's Tim?
Wilson,
who's Tim Boyle?
Tim Boyle.
Give him a shot.
And then
put him in.
By the way, their emergency quarterback, if you're curious about that, is Randall Cobb. So maybe they toss Randall Cobb out there because as of right now, it's probably not going to be any worse than what they've seen with Zach Wilson.
Can Breece Hall play quarterback? Tim Boyle out of Eastern Kentucky, who has in the regular season, what has he done?
He's gotten a little bit of action, I think, in his career.
Yeah. You got a little bit of a track record. Hasn't been good. Hasn't been good at all. Get out there, give it a whirl. Why not? Let's on to Tim Boyle, please, Jets.
I think
if
Flacco's
you want any
the guy.
Chance.
Don't you think? I think Flacco's probably the guy. He's got familiarity with that organization.
Something's happened with Flacco.
What about Cam Newton? Is Cam Newton a viable
I thought about
Cam
anymore? Newton. Yes, because he could at least provide you something to add to the offense. That's my problem with Zach Wilson. And I'm not trying to pile on Zach Wilson here, but yes, because Cam Newton could at least try to run the ball for you and give you another wrinkle in your offense. And, it's a little bit more complicated than that. I think part of the problem here is you have Nathaniel Hackett there, but you don't have Aaron Rodgers, that's not good because Nathaniel Hackett, can't hack it. We all know we all saw last year, and you don't have Aaron Rodgers there, which is, their success is tied together. But I mean, Tommy, I can't find a reason that anybody wouldn't be better than what we've seen now out of 2 games, basically, from Zach Wilson. Anybody can be that bad, at least.
I think, Cam Newton, by the way, when he returned to the Panthers, he didn't play last season. It would have been 2021. He didn't look good. He was not good. He's a 35, I think, year old quarterback, former MVP. He's clearly lost multiple steps, but I would think that Cam Newton or even Joe Flacco is a clear upgrade from what they've trotted out there so far.
I don't think it can get worse.
Yeah.
So there's only one direction to go. And I can't believe they haven't brought somebody in there.
If you didn't have the opportunity with the rest of the team around you, the skill players, the defense, all of that, if you didn't have any of that, then I would say just ride Zach Wilson this season.
That's fine.
See if you can develop it. See what you can do.
Yeah.
But again, you've got to try to bridge that gap. If in fact Aaron Rodgers can be back to the playoffs, you got to at least get there. They ain't getting there with Zach Wilson.
What's Josh Rosen up to these days?
Now that might not be a good idea.
869-1240 is the IHOP hotline here on the program. We'll come back. More Sports Daily after this. All right, welcome back, everybody. Sports Daily here on KFH, making our way through. Tommy, interesting Royals news you just pointed to me, kind of tying into your Braves. What do we have?
Yeah, so the Royals announced that they hired Brian Bridges as their scouting director. What makes this notable for the Royals is that Bridges was the Atlanta Braves scouting director from 2015 to 2018. He was the guy that was instrumental in the Braves drafting Austin Riley, Kyle Wright, Ian Anderson, AJ Minter, and other prospects for the Braves organization. What makes that notable is that we've talked at length over the months about the Royals' inability to draft well, inability to scout well, to bring in prospects that can ultimately be major league players that can impact positively an organization. They've not been able to do that. Well, now they've got a guy coming from Atlanta who has had a track record of significant success. That's really an area where the Royals have needed help.
Big time. And you know, that you, again, sometimes you just chase the organizations that do well. I mean, if the Braves are the gold standard, and I think that they clearly are, the Braves and the Rays, right? You go that route. Look, the Dodgers went and poached a bunch of Rays people a while ago. Did that work out for the Dodgers? Like the Dodgers don't just spend their way to all of this. They
Right.
develop players as well as any organization in baseball. That's why the Dodgers are at this, advantage, because they can do both, right? They can go get all the free agents, but they also develop a lot of their own guys. So I think that is exciting news for the Royals and a step in a direction. I think that the sky is falling, and maybe it's just, time and attrition. I think the sky is falling aspect to the Royals season has tempered a little bit, mostly because of Reagan's and Bobby Witt Jr. But this is reason for optimism, certainly. I think my only question is, Tommy, maybe you know this. Why was this guy available?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure the answer to that. I mean, he hasn't been with the organization since 2018. It's been a while. But he was responsible for some big time draft picks for the Braves that are clearly bearing fruit today for the organization. That's going to be the key, is that this is not an overnight thing for Brian Bridges, right? Like, we're going to more than likely see his impact in the years to come, because you got to draft and then develop and, do all of that. But he brings, quite a bit of wealth of scouting knowledge and expertise to an organization that really needs it. And I've mentioned it before. There's kind of a somewhat of a symbiotic relationship between the Royals and the Braves, and it's gone back a long time. John Schuerholz was the GM for the Royals, and then he was for the Braves. Dayton Moore came from the Braves. Ned Yost came from the Braves. So there's a lot of, big time relationships that have happened over the years between those two organizations. This is another example of that, but it's clearly something that the Royals, they've needed for a long time, to be able to scout better so they can help their club in the long term. As far as your point about things cooling off a little bit, as far as the overall pessimism, I feel that. I mean, I think it's partially the fact that football season is now here, right? And so a lot of the Royals fans are also Chiefs fans, and you're focused on that. But they did get to 50 wins last night. So I guess that's good. They're not going to lose, they're not going to win less than 50 games this season. So I guess that's a positive if you want to try to, spin it that way, but it is what it is.
Now it's a step that we won't see for a while. The positive is just like, hey, everybody, look over here at Bobby Witt Jr. He's really great, right? That's the positive. But I think that's that news excites me, probably as a baseball nerd, more than it should. But we're looking for that kind of stuff. We're looking for that kind of stuff with the Royals. We need that kind of stuff with the Royals. All right, Tommy, let's shift back to college football. We more previewed KU in the first hour. We didn't really preview K-State and UCF. So let's do that for just a minute. And we're going to have Tim Fitzgerald to help us do that tomorrow. Wyatt Thompson, the voice of the Wildcats, of course, will join us on Friday. But, as you and I sit here looking at it, we don't like the number. We established that much. But I still do think this is a game K-State absolutely needs to win. I think that's the case whether Will Howard plays or not. Like, K-State is, and it's going to be hard. What did Kleiman say? You can't let Missouri beat you twice. That's kind of the thing for me. Yeah, they're dealing with a lot, and we do need to pay attention to that stuff. But K-State still feels like they can go win a Big 12 championship. Like, you got to be able to bounce back at home and beat UCF. UCF's been good. I mean, I'll give them that.
They have been, and UCF is undefeated on the season, and they're not ranked at this point. But if you go into Manhattan in your Big 12 opener, the first year you've been in the conference, and you knock off the defending Big 12 champions, then at that point, I mean, people are going to be looking at UCF. They're going to be looking at Gus Malzahn, and really paying attention to them a lot more than they have been. This is a huge statement that UCF has the potential to make in this game, and it's up to the Wildcats to make sure that statement is not made. There's a lot for UCF to play for. You don't ever get back your very first Big 12 conference game ever, right? You just don't. Like, this is the one opportunity they get, and you're playing the defending champs, right? So there's a lot that UCF can accomplish going on the road to Manhattan and knocking off the defending conference champions. You cannot have a letdown if you're Kansas State. You cannot come off of that Missouri game with a hangover, even though you're banged up, even though Will Howard is banged up and Treshaun Ward is doubtful and Daniel Green is out for the year. You can't use that as a crutch. You've got to be able to get back motivated and get right again and have the right mindset going into this game for the Big 12 home opener. It makes it that much more, important for the Wildcats. You can't fall to 2-2 on the season. You just can't allow that to happen.
No. And more importantly, you can't fall to 0-1 in the Big 12.
Right.
UCF's interesting. I don't know what to make out of, blowout wins over Kent State and Villanova. But I do know going to Boise and, the blue turf and all that and getting a win there is good. They got busted hard by Washington. And, North Dakota is the team they beat. So this is Boise I'm talking about. So I don't know how good Boise is, but still, you're at home. UCF came in there and got a win. And that to me just says, be really careful here. Now, I haven't watched UCF. I think I saw a little bit of the Boise game, but I don't know like a ton about them yet. They're sort of a new venture because we don't really watch American football, right? AAC football, because Wichita State doesn't play football. We know, though, that they've got a history of being pretty good, and they went to Boise and won. So I think it's certainly a game that matters and is important to K-State. Going into the season, remember, UCF was the team that people thought of the group of new teams would be the most competitive and have the best shot to do something in this league. And I think that means something. But it's still week 3, Tommy. Like, it's hard to take away much of what's happened. I don't know. This game feels big to me. I could definitely see K-State flexing a little bit here. And I think that they're too well coached to not show up in a big way for this game. It's hard without knowing much about UCF to get a good grasp of it. That's why I'm just sort of uncomfortable with the line and all this stuff, because all we know about UCF, let's be honest, is that they beat Boise on the road. For me anyway. Like I don't watch their tape. I haven't seen them in a big game to have a real hot take on. Like I saw BYU last week because they played a big game at Arkansas. I saw some of that game, and it's like, okay, they're going to be pretty good. But I don't know anything about UCF.
K-State flexing, I think, is something that we haven't seen a lot of early this season. Of course, they played SEMO. That I don't think that's really flexing. I think that's just going and beating an inferior opponent. With Troy, they did pull away, and the margin of victory for the Wildcats was more than I personally thought it would be. So I guess maybe they flexed a little bit against Troy. But of course, Missouri, they weren't able to do that. So you've got the chance now in front of your home crowd to kick off Big 12 play by not only winning, but your words, flexing on a new member of the conference and saying, look, we still are the defending conference champions. We may have stumbled a week ago against Missouri, but the entire nation is talking about Texas. They're talking about Oklahoma. They're not really talking about the Wildcats, and we won the dang conference a year ago, and we're going to remind you of why we did. Like that's the opportunity in front of K-State this weekend at home to kick off Big 12 play. So the storylines are there for both teams. What UCF can accomplish and the attention that will be on them if they knock off the defending champs in week 1 in their first time in a Big 12 game. I mean, that's big. And then K-State bouncing back, that's big too. So I'm with you. I think it's going to be a pretty high profile game and one that, I'm certainly going to be watching, with really, really close attention, because I want to see how K-State responds after the Missouri loss.
Yeah, I do too. I mean, the response is second to Will Howard's status this week. The response is the biggest thing. And I do think, and we talked about this just a little bit, seeing the defense without Daniel Green and we saw him a lot in the Missouri game. Missouri scored more points, I think, than we're comfortable with seeing a team score on K-State. So, what are their lingering effects long-term and big time to that piece of it too? All right, let's do our final giveaway here. Let's go with Bert Kreischer here, Jad. I believe we have one more pair of these tickets. Do we have one or two more pairs of these Bert Kreischer tickets, Jad? Just one. Final Bert Kreischer tickets here for us on Sports Daily. He's a comedian. He's bringing his Tops Off World Tour to Wichita's Intrust Bank Arena. The show is Friday at 7 o'clock. Kreischer was named the 2023 Stand-Up Comedian of the Year at the Just for Laughs Comedy Festival in Montreal. We've got a pair of tickets for our second caller during the break here at 869-1240. We will get you hooked up with that. We've got all of our giveaways making their way through the program here today. Jad will get us a winner. Bert Kreischer tickets here on Sports Daily. Good luck, everybody. Second caller. Here we go. We'll be right back. All right, we got John there as our winner of that final pair of tickets to see Bert Kreischer. Congratulations, John, Benny, Bart, for winning all our giveaways today. Glad to be able to do that for you here on Sports Daily. If you missed anything from hour number one, including chat with Ariel Orsuto, who's been covering Colorado for 9 News in Denver, you can go back and listen to that for free on the Odyssey app. You can also go to kfhradio.com to find that. Tommy, we're pretty open here. Just give everybody rest of the week rundown real quick. Tim Fitzgerald joins us tomorrow. That's K-State Insider at the top of the 10 o'clock hour. We got we got picks. By the way, I missed, how was the trash talk on picks last week?
Well, you weren't around, and you were the winner of the weekend on week number 1. You went 8-2. Paul and I went 5-5. So you weren't around to do any trash talk. So it was very cordial between Paul and I. So you missed that opportunity. And then, of course, our picks this last week, none of us did particularly well. So I can't imagine there's going to be much trash talk.
Well, we'll bring it back. We talked about this yesterday. It's been so strange from the betting world. So that first week, 8-2, right? Terrible betting weekend. Last week, 4-6, great betting weekend. When will I ever learn my lesson with parlays, Tommy? Like, I love them. They're so frustrating and exciting and this emotional roller coaster. But I gotta, it's too hard for me. We'll have Chelsea Messenger on. She can lecture us about it again tomorrow, as she always does.
We're never going to listen.
No, nobody does. Like, we all know it's a sucker thing. Like, we all get it. We've all been there. We all understand it. We're willing participants. It has been an interesting betting year, to say the least. These injuries in the NFL, like, I don't know how to predict the NFL anymore. There's nothing to do about it, but the injuries are wild. And Nick Chubb's the latest, but we've got him all over the place. I mean, we just think about the stars that we've lost for the season in Aaron Rodgers and Nick Chubb. The very significant players we've already lost in J.K. Dobbins, Saquon Barkley's out for a little while. Like, it has become this battle of attrition in the NFL. And I don't know. Are there any teams that aren't like one, and quarterbacks excluded here, one key injury from like it all unraveling and falling apart? Like, when we talk about some of the best teams, I think they're built to win despite those things. A la the Chiefs, the Bills, right? The Eagles are probably that way. The Cowboys might be that way. And the Niners are certainly that way. I mean, the Niners did this with 3 different quarterbacks last year. So I don't know. It's gotta be just brutal trying to be an NFL coach right now. Cause it's, next man up. But come on, that kid, it's tough.
Yeah, without a doubt. I mean, clearly the major ones that we all know about. I mean, you've got Nick Chubb, who officially the Browns announced today he's done for the entire season. Sounds like he's going to have multiple surgeries. You hate that, for the guy. The Giants and Saquon Barkley, how long is he going to be out? Of course, we know Aaron Rodgers, J.K. Dobbins. I mean, there have been some brutal ones already here early on, and we're only 2 weeks in to the regular season, at this point. I want to mention this because I know we've got a couple of minutes left, and it's not injury related at all. I sent you this. Did you see that Jason Kelce confirmed today that Travis Kelce and Taylor Swift are officially dating?
What? No.
Yeah.
When did you
So
send?
I sent that to you a little bit ago,
right before the Royals thing.
So
what?
He did his weekly or whatever, his appearance on Philadelphia radio, where he said that the rumors are 100% true, that Travis and Taylor Swift are a couple. I wanted to at least get that in before the end of the show.
Oh my God. Yeah, I totally missed that because
we can ramble about injuries, but who cares about injuries? We're talking about Travis Kelce and Taylor Swift.
We needed to give a full segment to this. And maybe we get to it tomorrow. They're like, because the reality is, I like genuinely and legitimately don't care about this stuff.
Sure,
but
you do.
No. Listen, hear me out. I don't, but I am finding myself on this one because it's a lot of fun, right? And it's probably a credit to Travis Kelce. But like the fact that I can get Rachel or co-anchor at 12 News, like interested in sports and like her ears to perk up because I've mentioned Taylor Swift. There's a fun nature to this one where I'm being like, I don't, you can say it's me like making this up, but it's not. You can ask my wife. Like, I don't know about, celebrity stuff. I don't care about it. I do love music though. And so, T-Swizz sort of goes into both of those realms. But this one has my attention for some reason, because I think everybody wants it to work, right? It's like, oh, that'd be a fun couple.
So the quote from Jason Kelsey, it wasn't just that he said, yeah, it's true. His words were, the rumors about them dating are, quote, 100% true. Those are the words from Jason Kelsey, that Travis and Taylor Swift are dating.
How much of this could be Jason Kelsey trying to create a distraction for Travis as a competitive advantage for the Eagles over the Chiefs?
I mean, could very well be. But regardless of that, that's the new power couple. I'm on board with it. I'm here for it, as the kids would say. I think it's great.
Can we please get T-Swizz at a Chiefs game? Let's just blow this thing wide open.
Great.
I haven't seen. I wonder if Travis Kelsey will talk to the media this week. We'll see. I really hope somebody asks him about it, just because he'll have a fun answer for it.
Hey, she clearly is going crazy for that mustache, and I don't blame her.
Well, it's a beard now, isn't it? Or is it still just a mustache?
That's still a mustache.
But there's a beard involved now. Isn't there? Didn't he have
No,
any rocking a beard
just
this
a mustache.
year?
Just a mustache. He looks like a traffic
I'm jealous. I can't grow one. So, I'm jealous. I think you should just go just a mustache, just for your wife.
Save the date. Friday, September 29th from 5 until 8 o'clock. It's the 12th annual Rally at the Region Car Show. Dash plaques for the first 100 registered cars. Trophies will be awarded. There'll be free hamburgers and hot dogs for everyone, and live music from Wichita's own The House Band. The 12th annual Rally at the Region Car Show near 21st and Webb at 2050 North Webb Road. Friday, September 29th from 5 till 8 p.m. Join us for the fun and check out all the great cars. The Rally at the Region Car Show. We'll see you there.
Toppers Plus Truck Accessories has moved to a new location at 333 Northwest Street. Whether you're working or playing, Toppers Plus will get your truck ready with Rhino linings. Nothing beats a Rhino, the leader in sprayed-on truck bed liners that outperforms plastic drop-in rubber mats and paint-like coatings. They won't crack, peel, or warp, and include a lifetime warranty. Toppers Plus, your Rhino dealer. Visit our new location at 333 Northwest Street or toppersplusks.com.
Make your truck work for you!
Bert Kreischer presents Tops Off World Tour.
I look at my dad, I go, hey, Dad, maybe we should sit down. I don't think your Al's out tonight. 30 seconds later, whoo, right on top of it, we hear, whoo. My oldest daughter goes, Dad, look across the lake at the old man on his dock. There's another drunk, blind old white man just, whoo.
Bert Kreischer, live on stage, Friday, September 22nd.
That's it for us. For Tommy Castor and Chad Chambers, I'm Jacob Albracht. Let's tell you what's on the network today. Jim Rome follows us from 11 to 1 o'clock today because the Royals have a little day baseball here against the Guardians. 1 o'clock first pitch. You'll hear it right here on KFH. And then at 7 o'clock tonight, the I'm Listening special on Odyssey Radio. The I'm Listening special will feature artists, athletes, medical experts, and more to highlight why talking about mental health is important and discuss how they manage their own mental health. I'm Listening. That's at 7 o'clock tonight. We'll do it again tomorrow. Tim Fitzgerald, Chelsea Messenger, our Thursday guests. Looking forward to it. We'll see you then.